Hey everyone, my name is Nathan Allen. I am a staff editor at Poets and Quants and do a lot of the entrepreneurship stuff for Poets and Quants. So super happy to be here for this event and really happy to be speaking with a few recently graduated MBAs who are doing some entrepreneurial things. So I'll let them introduce themselves. We'll do a kind of a round robin format. So I'll prompt them to introduce themselves. And I'm going to ask them to say their name, where they went to school, where they are based now, and then a fun fact about themselves. Then we'll start talking about their companies and their experiences. So Alan, let's start with you.
Hey everyone, my name is Alan. I went to the Fuqua School of Business at Duke University. I'm currently still based in Durham, North Carolina. And a fun fact about me, I picked up golf during the pandemic and continuing to slay trees on the golf course.
All right, Alan, thanks for that. It's interesting seeing the hobbies that people have picked up since the start of the pandemic. That sounds like a productive time. So, all right, Nahira, let's move to you next.
Sure, thanks so much, Nathan. So my name is Nahira. I went to IE Business School. I did an MBA there. Right now I am doing a master's in big data as well. I am currently based in Madrid. And a fun fact is that I picked up paddle, and I'll tell you a bit more, but just a teaser. My company sells paper that's made out of stone instead of trees. Very
cool. Yep, can't wait to hear more about that. That's going to be great. All right, Daniel, let's move to you next.
Hey everyone, I'm Daniel. I went to WashU Olin's Business School back in from 2017 to 2019. I'm now in San Diego. I picked up surfing while here, so that's been fun. And fun fact about me and my company is I used to have yellow pee, and now I have the clearest pee ever because I've learned how to be hydrated.
I don't know how fun of a fact that is. I guess it's kind of fun. It definitely opens up the door to a lot of other questions, which we will get to. Thanks for that, Daniel. And what I love about this panel is that we've got just a great range of geographies and school experiences. So obviously, we've got Alan, who grew up in the Bay Area, who might want to talk a little bit about that. Obviously, a big epicenter for entrepreneurship in the United States. Now based on the East Coast in North Carolina, which is a really interesting area, I think, in growing in entrepreneurship. And I'm sure he can talk more about that. And then obviously Nahira with the international for us in the United States component there. In Spain, a lot of great stuff going on in Madrid and Spain and Europe. And then Daniel coming from the Midwest for school out to San Diego, West Coast. So great span here. Daniel, let's just kick it back to you, since I feel like we've got some people who probably want to hear more about that fun fact about yourself. So tell us just, minute, 2-3 minutes or whatever, just, kind of brief intro on your company, what it does, what problem you're trying to solve. I think we have an idea now, but yeah, just quick overview.
Yeah, so a couple of years before business school, I took my first job as a corporate in the corporate world as a consultant. So did my other two co-founders, who are good friends of mine. And we realized, number one, we didn't really like our corporate jobs. We kind of wanted to dive into the startup scene. And number two, as we were kind of thinking through that, we realized that during our jobs, we are super dehydrated, traveling all the time, having some drinks and stuff. And so the idea was, what if you could stay more hydrated with everything that you're drinking? And what would be a good way to actually track it, right? And kind of figure out how to have all day hydration and fight the fact that 75% of us are chronically dehydrated. And so that's kind of how the idea and the company was born. What has now turned into Buoy, which is the name of our product line, which is just a little easy squeezy bottle that has the electrolyte equivalent of 13 Gatorades that can be squeezed into any type of drink. So make any type of drink a more hydrating one. And yeah, so that's kind of how we're different. There's a bunch of, hydration companies from Gatorade and Liquid IV and Noon that are all really focused on hydration in the sports and athletic sense of things. We're taking more of an all-day approach to help people stay more hydrated every day. And yellow pea is the kind of central component of that, because that's really the only way you can kind of on a day-to-day basis see how hydrated you are and track your hydration. So we've come up with the anti-yellow pea club. That's our thing, and that's kind of the subscribers to Buoy are honorary members of the anti-yellow pea club, and it's all about, you know, making sure we're having just as big of a focus on our hydration as we do on healthy food. And sometimes I think hydration gets overlooked a bit, whereas we have, you know, pretty big focus on healthy food. So yeah, just trying to bring hydration, specifically all day hydration, to the forefront, and help people, make it a habit and become healthier as they do.
Awesome. All right. Thanks for that intro, Alan. Let's move to you next. Tell us about your company, what you're working on, anything, quickly you want to share about it.
Yeah, happy to. So I actually spent the beginning of my career in San Diego, Daniel. So definitely miss it out there. And my entire career has been in the life science tools industry and very much focused on helping researchers be able to study different diseases, understand what's happening within the human body. Coming to business school, I got connected through the technology transfer office to our CSO and founder, who's the chair of cell biology at Duke. And he was very focused on studying neurodevelopmental disorders and trying to find new proteins that could potentially serve as future therapeutic targets, and needed a better platform to do so, and turned to gene editing. I was very excited because of my background in working in that industry and the ability to leverage some of the new tools that could help us potentially have new therapies of tomorrow. And so that was a big part of my MBA, was getting connected, thinking about how do we actually start a brand new company in a sector I was familiar with and necessarily fund it and get it into a reality. So that was very much been our focus, is operating in a kind of B2B market, very much early stage life science research, which is very niche, but also critical to the future health of our society. And I think in COVID times, more prevalent to the overall public than ever before.
Great. Okay. And Nahira, tell us about your company.
Sure. So basically, when I was in college, I did college in Mexico City. I'm originally from Mexico City. And I went to do a program in Shanghai for business in Asia. While I was there, we had to come up with a project of something we would bring back to Mexico City, but something like imaginary, whatever. Like, we didn't really have to do anything very concrete. And they took us to trade shows, and there I met the inventors of stone paper, which is a paper that is made out of stones instead of trees. And I completely fell in love with the product. I thought, like, there's a lot of people that say that people like that we're going more digital, and I get that, but it's also like important for people to write, and paper has not yet been completely vanished from people's lives. And I saw this as a great opportunity to just give people who are still in touch with that, plus the packaging industry, another solution that didn't hurt or deforest our environment, So I love the idea. I talked to them, I convinced them to bring it to Mexico, and now I am the sole distributor of that paper in Mexico City, well, in all of Mexico. The cool thing about the product is that it's not only eco-friendly, but it is also waterproof. So that helps with like a lot of the packaging. You can put it in the fridge, nothing happens to it. And it's also super elegant and smooth to write in.
Awesome. So Nahira, we'll throw this one back to you, this next one. And I'm wondering about your path to becoming an entrepreneur. Did you always want to become an entrepreneur? Is entrepreneurship in your family? Tell us about the path to your background to realizing you wanted to start a company.
Yeah, entrepreneurship is definitely in my family. Both of my parents are entrepreneurs. So it's something that I basically grew up seeing in my family. Like, weekends weren't really weekends. Like, I saw my parents like working 24/7. I understood exactly what it meant, like that it's actually like having like a small baby, like you need to take care of it all the time. So I was lucky enough, in a sense, to be able to see that already and not have like a very idealized concept of entrepreneurship. And because of that, I knew that I had to get a product or something that I truly believed in, because I knew that it was something that would take like all of like that I had, and it had to take all of my my efforts. So it was only until I found something that I really truly believed in that I took the decision to become an entrepreneur. But yeah, I had already worked in other companies, and I saw that I wanted to actually work for something that I believed in and that I truly wanted to put everything into.
Great. Thank you. Daniel, we will move to you next. Same question. When did you realize you wanted to become an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think it was pretty early on. My older brother kind of had the same mindset of never really wanting to work for someone else, and we were the kids doing lemonade stands and garage sales and importing, MP3 players from China and reselling them on eBay. So I think it was kind of natural for us. It's weird because my parents are both doctors, so they didn't really kind of have it in them. But yeah, we traveled a bunch as a kid, so I think that helps instill it into us. And yeah, the other part of it was just kind of as Nahira was saying, it's really cool to create something and really be proud of it. And what I learned, during my corporate job is as I was, always checking the clock to wait till it was 5 p.m. I realized that, I didn't want that, right? I wanted something the totally opposite, where you might even end up working more, but the time flies by because you're enjoying what you're doing, and you care about it. You care about it and you own it. So I think kind of all those things combined helped me realize that this was definitely the path for me.
Great. All right. Alan, same question. When did you decide you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
So I had a stepdad who is a tech entrepreneur, but very much a deep PhD, EE computer science type of entrepreneur. And so I had some aspirations from a young exposure, but was trying to connect those dots as I went down the healthcare path with the bioengineering degree. Figured out pretty early on that I was not destined to be the CSO or CTO of a company, and decided to go into industry, and kind of debated doing an MBA 3 different times, more in the corporate side. First, to become a manager, was able to do that in the startup I was at, then to just improve myself, and delayed it 2 more years. Finally got into Fuqua, loved the people, loved the culture, and had a come to Jesus moment during my vacation before business school started, and was like, this is the time, I want to go for it. And decided to just really go all in on entrepreneurship during my MBA, and came out the other side with the commercial brain that I had developed, and actually ended up having to become much more technical and come back to my roots a little bit. So it's been an interesting journey for sure.
Great. And I want to dig more into that, why the MBA? And it sounds like entrepreneurship became a thing after you started the MBA. But why did you want to do the MBA? What were some things you were looking for in a program? And why did you ultimately decide to attend Duke University?
So for me, I was very focused on thinking about new technologies in the healthcare industry and branching out. So when I initially applied to Fuqua, it was a goal to explore the healthcare industry. So I did 2 things. One was I took the top bioengineering programs and then matched them up with the top MBA programs and said, let's start here, and then cross off the cities I don't want to live in. Very technical. And decided that was a good starting point. But as I got closer to actually beginning business school and talking to more people, I realized I was much more inclined to the non-traditional MBA paths of consulting, banking, and whatnot. And so I really felt that draw into wanting to focus in on bringing a new technology to market, and also getting some exposure to venture capital.
Great. All right. Nahira, same question. Why the MBA, and what was it about IE Business School that made you want to go there?
So by doing my own company, and probably Daniel and Alan can testify, like when you are starting your own company, you are every part of the company. So you are quality control, you are HR, you are everything. And by doing that, I saw that, first of all, I wanted to get more more experience, or more I wanted to see what else other people were doing in order to become a better leader of my company, basically, and in every side of my company. What I loved about IE University was the fact that they do have a very big entrepreneurial program. They have the startup lab, which is 5 weeks where you just go for it and you create your own company, and you're given mentors. And I love that because I thought that way I could connect with so many other people that were doing the same thing as I was. Being an entrepreneur can be a lonely job, And when you can connect with other people that are doing the same and you can bounce off ideas, it's super enriching. So first of all, like the technical part, obviously, but like secondly, it was also a thing of like just knowing more people and getting more perspectives and opening up my mind so that I could bring more to what I was currently doing.
Awesome. Great. Daniel, how about you? What were you looking for in an MBA? Why did you decide to get an MBA, and why Washington University in St. Louis?
Yeah, I think they both hit on a lot of the stuff, but I'd point to, as far as the MBA part for the startup, I'd point to two main things: the network that you get from joining, not just, professors, but also your peers. And kind of combined with that is giving another 2 years to actually take the time to start the business in the right way. Sometimes people think that they need to just quit their job right away and, start full time. And now you have to pay yourself a salary and kind of take away from some of the you have to go quicker, right? And so that 2 years that you can kind of give yourself to really hone in on the strategy and the business model and get the feedback from that network, right, about the idea, and really help kind of launch it in the right way, was really the reason why I thought it would be best, along with, just making sure I had a better education surrounding business and kind of all the main stuff I needed to do, especially as the CEO. So I'd say, those two main things were the biggest reasons. And then why St. Louis and WashU? I was actually living there before, so it was a good fit. But I met up with the head of entrepreneurship at the time, Cliff Holcamp, who's really helpful as a mentor to me. And I actually met him before actually enrolling in the program, and realized that there was a great entrepreneurship program there. Really meant to help people, start their businesses and get it off the ground and be ready to go once you graduate. So yeah, all that stuff.
Great. Yeah, Cliff Holcamp was basically the one who got the entrepreneurship program at Olin going, and he's really been big in the St. Louis region as well. As someone who also lived in St. Louis for a while, I can tell you, being there in 2008, 2009, and then coming back in 2019, 2020, totally different city. This has happened with a lot of different cool cities throughout the United States and the world as well, where entrepreneurship has really picked up and made some changes. So St. Louis is definitely one of those. So I'll put this next question to Nahira first. And, I think one of the big kind of fundamental things going on with entrepreneurship and the business school versus not the business school is, why the business school? Why get why spend, a lot of money getting the degree whenever you maybe could use that money to actually launch your own company? So what was it in terms of specifics about the MBA and business school that you think really helped you launch a company?
So for me, like I had already launched my company when I started the MBA. But what really helped me was like in general, I had a couple of classes that just like really opened my mind. I had this class where we got an article about the entrepreneurship dilemma, and it basically said like, it was talking about how like when you start a company, do you give power to somebody else within your company to make it bigger and make it scalable, or do you keep all the power to yourself, knowing that like the company is going to be smaller than it could have been if you would have given, I don't know, venture capital or like angel investors power. So that really changed my perspective. And I think like for me, already having founded the company and everything, it was amazing to see like what I had done in the past 3 years and compared what was happening in class and what other companies were doing in the cases that we were reading, and thinking like how I had applied it at some point, or how I could continue to apply it within my company. I never really stopped working while I was doing my MBA. So that was like super interesting, because sometimes like I would stay after class and just talk to the teacher and say like, hey, I'm having this thing with this employee right now at work, like in my company, like how should I like tackle this? And I got to like actually implement what I was learning in class in that moment.
Great. All right, Daniel, we will move to you next. What were some of the things at Washington University and the MBA program that really helped you now that you've started Bowie?
Yeah, so there's a couple classes also mostly taught by Cliff Holcamp. There's one called The Hatchery that was actually meant to help either, people that have had existing ideas and kind of more fleshed out like I did, or new business plans, but essentially the opportunity to create a business plan, to have mentorship around it, and get kind of feedback and advice on it from people within the community, both within the network at the business school, but also just St. Louis as a whole. Cliff brought in a bunch of people that could act as mentors and help guide in the right direction. So, and then you kind of create a team of others, in the class to work on your business. So it was awesome, because I had my other co-founders who were still at their corporate jobs helping out, but I also had the opportunity to work with 3 other students at the time to help continue to work on it and hash it out and really focus on that strategy and that feedback on the product itself to help launch it in the right way, which we did shortly after that on Amazon.
Great. And Alan, how about you? What were some of the specifics, some of the more helpful aspects to the Fuqua program?
Yeah, so for me, the MBA was completely an experiential journey, and that was a big part of why I dove in. There's kind of 3 major verticals for me regarding entrepreneurship, and that really helped out. The first being more the entrepreneurial community, the second more academic entrepreneurship, and then the third being investing. So on the first vertical, it was the entrepreneurship classes. I was able to connect with like-minded individuals. I got to try to build a business of my own that I had an idea on. Ultimately shut it down because the market was too small. But it actually was an amazing experience to really learn the mechanics of evaluating a problem, figuring out if there is an opportunity to execute, and then presenting that to a panel of judges, some of which were Duke affiliated, which ultimately led me to number 3, which one of the judges was later my VC mentor for my summer internship. So that's kind of the third piece. But the second was the academic entrepreneurship piece. So there's a individual called Howie Ree, who's the Duke super connector. Everyone in Duke entrepreneurship kind of knows him, and he is the person who you start talking to him and he closes his eyes and starts connecting you to people. And next thing you know, you have 10 new people you need to talk to. And it happens pretty much every time I get to talk to him. So before I even started my MBA, he connected me to an individual named Rob Halford, who is running our new Venture Fellows program, which basically is tied to the Tech Transfer Office. And they have executives and residents who are industry vets, 10, 20 years of operational and investor experience, and mostly in healthcare, to be honest. And every term they'd bring on 1 to 2 MBAs per mentor to work on a business idea that a faculty sponsor had developed in their research lab. And so I did that before my MBA started and then all the way through, which ultimately became our startup Castag Biosciences. So those relationships were absolutely critical. And then getting more to the venture side, getting to actually sit in the boardroom and see how they were evaluating technologies, companies that were 2 years ahead of where we were, 3 years ahead, and being able to kind of triangulate what are the good things that they're doing in their pitch decks and in their business plans that we're not doing or thinking about, and then connecting that to where my past experience as more on the operations with a business that was 10 years past that was just immensely helpful to help me triangulate, because I knew how to scale a business from 25 million to 200, but I had no clue how to go from 0, none. And so those 3 things really came together in this amazing experiential journey for me, which frankly, if I hadn't taken 2 years to just go have fun and build and just meet all these great people throughout the Duke community, there's just no way I could have had all those experiences if I stayed in my job or tried to do it completely on my own. So it's multifaceted.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that. Daniel, let's move to you next on this one. And I'm wondering, now that you've had some time I think you've been out from the MBA the longest of anybody on the panel. So now that you've had some time to test drive the degree, what do you think are some things that are most helpful from the degree that you didn't expect whenever you first graduated?
That's a good question. I think I think it was what I learned the most was how crucial feedback is, and the feedback process. It's super hard when you have your own idea, and every point of feedback, especially critical feedback, feels like an attack to some degree, right? Especially when you're starting out. And so I think what was instilled in me in various classes, right? Yeah, two things actually. That's the first one, right? Is like learning how to incorporate feedback, especially critical feedback, learning how to hear it and decipher it. Is it worth, using to update, the product or the business model, or is it just, one out of a million or 100 people that, don't like the product for whatever reason. So I think that was really helpful, specifically from business school, learning how to hear feedback and decipher it. Number two would be leadership, learning how to lead from behind. There's a lot of leadership classes that WashU offered. I actually took a class also that just pretty much the whole class is, every class there'd be a new CEO that would come in and talk for an hour and a half, from pretty big companies. It was awesome hearing from them. And a lot of that was just about leadership and how do you work with, other members and help make them most effective. And for me, that was huge, because initially I was, even with my two co-founders, very kind of micromanagey and, telling them what to do and little tasks and this. And now we've gotten really to a much better point where everyone, not just our founders, but everyone else that's working is really leading it, right? And my job is to just help them as much as I can and help them be a leader in their kind of field and what they're doing. And so I'd say that actually is probably the biggest thing, is learning how to be a good leader and a hands-off leader, right? Unless hands-on is needed.
Yeah, great. Alan, same question for you. You've been out for about a year and a half now. How's it been test driving the degree, and what are some things that have been super helpful that you didn't realize would be when you first graduated?
I think the best part about the MBA is just getting to meet so many people with different backgrounds, and you get very comfortable learning and asking for help, and also giving help wherever possible. That pay it forward mentality pays so many dividends later in life. And I feel like the number of resources that I've given for free and received for free to help me move my business forward is something that I didn't know how to do as well before the MBA. And it's a different type of networking, I think, when you are, for example, connecting with other founders, but they're completely scientific. And so I can offer more business expertise, and they can explain technical concepts specific to their field that I frankly never learned and need to. So I think the way you leverage your network and build it and nurture it are things that the MBA absolutely fosters. If you're in the right environment, I should say. There are some bad stories of that, but I luckily did not have that.
Spoken like the true extrovert that Alan said he was before we went live on this podcast, the network. All right. Nihira, same question. I realize that you're getting the specialized master's now, but a ways out from the MBA, what are some ways in which it has been helpful to you that you didn't think it would be?
Yeah, so I totally agree with Daniel. Like for me, it's been a huge leadership lesson as well. Connecting with people that are like-minded. You get to bounce off ideas, and you get to understand how to listen to other people and how to implement what you're listening to. I think also if every case that we read, sometimes you don't really grasp how much you're actually learning. But then when I've been faced with a similar or kind of like a similar situation back in my business, sometimes I see myself remembering oh, this company in this case did that, or I remember that we discussed this in this class, and implementing that kind of solution to what is happening in my day to day. So that's been amazing. And lastly, I think I took a strategy class, and that really helped me to be able to think of things more in a more strategic manner, understand what my market is, what my niche is, and take decisions according to that.
Awesome. Okay, Alan, we will start this next one for you, with you. What sort of challenges are you facing right now with your company? What are some of the bigger pain points that you're having?
I would say our primary pain point right now is figuring out which markets to enter. Since we're a platform technology, it's incredibly deep, scientifically speaking. And so when I go out and I interview 100 experts in different fields of research, they're going to give me probably 100 different answers of what's important. And largely you can tie that to the research grants that they're interested in. So for us to necessarily create a product that is broadly needed is something that we have to put a lot of thought into. Which market do we focus on? And you learn in your business school classes how to do market sizing and think about these things, but depending on how technical the market is or how emotional and consumer driven, I think those things are incredibly nuanced. And so the ability to operate off limited information to make these decisions is something that I spend a lot of brain power and discussions on, and no mentor can truly give you the exact answer, right? Because only you know the information you've gathered. So that's probably my greatest struggle.
Okay. Nahira, same question. What are some of the biggest challenges you're having now with your company?
So definitely after doing the MBA and now that I'm doing the big data masters, I can see that I want to take my company to something, first of all, that is a lot more scalable. It doesn't depend on me 100%. I want to like grow it a lot more. And also like I want to digitalize it. I want to find a way to digitalize it. So those are like the two main points that I am like now trying to decipher how I'm going to implement once I graduate in March.
Great. Daniel, same question for you. What are some of the struggles that you all are dealing with right now?
Yeah, I wouldn't say struggles. I'd say more challenges. Two, I would say one would be identifying the lowest hanging fruit and kind of honing in on that focus has always been a challenge for us because hydration is needed by everybody. And so figuring out who are going to be the best customers for us and how to go after them is definitely always a challenge for us. We're starting to hone in on it more with some people like the chronic illness communities and other people that have naturally gravitated towards buoy. And then number two is also scaling the business now. So we spent the last few years really focusing on getting the product to the right place, the brand to the right place, and everything else. And we're now at a point where we've begun the real fundraising, right? So we're just closing up like our kind of pre-seed fundraising round, and we're going to raise a lot more money in the next 4 to 6 months, and then a lot more after that. And so kind of switching gears from this like super like lean startup mode to more of the kind of growth mindset and making sure we kind of hit milestones and keep everybody happy as we move forward.
Great. So we've got a question from the attendees now. One of them, and I think it's a really great question because I think it kind of gets at the heart of deciding to launch a business, start your own business, whenever you're doing your MBA or immediately after versus waiting and working a full-time job for a few years. So I'm going to ask each of you this question to get your different opinions on it. And Nahira, we'll start with you. But it's, if you could just walk through the process of what it's like to walk away from a good paying job that the MBA will guarantee you afterwards versus starting your company. And if you thought about that, just any advice you have for that.
Yeah, so for me it was more after graduating from college, to be honest, because right now like I'm still doing my master's in big data. But what I can say is that I thought about it. I knew that inside of me, I wanted to try the entrepreneurial path. And I knew that this was the time of my life I wanted to try it because I'm like, I don't know, like I don't have anybody that really depends on me. Like I could just like go for it and nobody would be truly affected by like any decisions that I was taking. So like I did have some jobs in line, but at the end I said like, if I don't try it today, then I might never do it and I might never know what it is. So that was the thinking behind it, but it is definitely a risk. And yeah, I think like I was privileged enough to be able to take that risk at that moment.
Okay, Daniel, we will move to you next. You talked about working in consulting beforehand. Do you have any thoughts about going back into consulting or a high-paying job, and how have you kind of navigated, the the idea of not having maybe a stable salary?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I don't think of it as a long-term risk at all. For me, so on the short-term side, yes, it is a risk. Especially, I was fortunate also not to have a family that I needed to feed or whatever. Right, it's just kind of me, so I can live off of. I knew I could live off of a much lesser salary for however long I needed until hopefully reaching that exit point and being financially independent forever. But long-term, the reason it's not a risk is because, for me, right, you get so much more experience doing your own startup than any corporate job ever, right? You like, I learned how to do like a patent, product development, like you're just across the board for everything, right? So even if you go and try to start your startup for a year or two and it doesn't work out, and you realize either it's not for you or you do want to return to the corporate world, now you can go back to those interviews and say you did 10 different things. You have so much more experience. You're just a much better candidate for a lot higher paying jobs. You can easily make up all that maybe salary you missed out on for a year or two with a much just a much higher paying job. So that's kind of my philosophy on it. I really don't see it as a long-term risk. Yes, it's a short-term risk depending on your situation, and you need to make sure you can afford it based on your family or whatever, right? But long-term, it's worth it for sure to at least give it a shot.
Okay, Alan, same question. Any thoughts or hesitations you had, whenever you, because you have a little bit of a different perspective where you decided on entrepreneurship once you got into the MBA program. So was there any concern about, starting your own business and that risk versus going into a really well-paying job?
Yeah, it's definitely something that the first financial models or that you make is like, how much are you giving up, right, in salary? I feel like that's the first math problem they make all of us do in the MBA program. But for me, I knew that at this point in my life, it's the lowest risk. I have a dog and a fiance, right? And so I don't have kids to feed. It's something that's manageable. I'm also not living in the Bay Area. So all of those factors are good for me to be able to survive on 40K a year while we're trying to bootstrap this startup. And I'm not used to living a very luxurious and lifestyle at this point in my life. But I still did the model for my career, which was, okay, if I take this full-time MBA job and actually went and did recruiting, let's just say I have a, guaranteed shot at making 150 to 200K, something like that, right? Pretty average MBA numbers. Versus I'm making 40K, but I have a 10% chance on an exit with my equity in this business and an assumption on the dilution. I knew that I have a 10% chance of doing at least equal, even in my low outcome. And that was good enough for me, right? I didn't need to know for sure that I was going to be equal, but I knew that there was a percent chance that if I bet on myself, at the minimum, like the others had said, I'm going to learn a ton. I'm going to be ready for any future career decision I make. And there's an outcome where I'm going to be financially independent or at least equal to my MBA peers.
Right. Yeah, totally a stage of life and a very personal decision to make, obviously. So we're at about 5 minutes to go now. And so we're just going to wrap it up with this one final question. And that is, if you could go back and give yourself advice whenever you're going through the MBA and you want to launch a business, what advice would that be? Daniel, let's start with you on that one.
Yeah, you think you're saying more for the company or the MBA program itself?
So for anyone who, the other way to look at this is, for somebody who is thinking about the MBA and they know that they want to launch a business, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, the advice, and kind of going back to the last question, is to do it and to really hone in on the mindset that you'll break through any barrier to get it started. I think the reason I was, successful in at least launching the business so far and getting to the point where we're at now is because I would do anything. Like it's your baby, as Nahira was saying, right? You need to be all in on it. And like for me, for example, I forced the 200 kids in my class to buy Buoy on Amazon and leave an Amazon review to help launch. Like everyone probably hates me in my class, but I did what it took to get the business going. And I think really I think I did it the right way, as far as like go into it with like, don't be half in, half out. If you're going to do it and give it your best shot and see what happens.
Everyone in WashU's MBA 2019 class is like, man, what's with this yellow pea dude? He won't leave us alone. Keeps spamming.
I'll buy a bottle. I'll go on Amazon after this and I'll buy a bottle. I got you.
Yeah, he's doing it right now. Alan, same question. What advice do you have for somebody who wants to get the MBA and wants to launch a business while doing it or soon after?
I would say two things. One is be comfortable swimming against the stream, I guess I would say, because for many business schools, the primary drivers are still banking, consulting, and product management, I believe. And so really figure out who your peers are and try to not get sucked into the traditional MBA timelines. And the second is be unabashedly request help. Just be really vocal on what resources you need. You can have so many amazing relationships and introductions. I'll never forget when I was working on my first startup idea, I went to our professor, who's the director of our health sector management program. I said, hey, do you have a contact at LabCorp? I'd like to talk to them about blank, blank, blank. And he was like, yeah, sure, no problem. Let me connect you with my friend. Next day, I got introduced to the VP of strategy. And I was like, good God, I don't know how I would have had that intro otherwise. So, just really be vocal on what you're doing and what you're hoping to have and what resources you need.
Great, thank you. And Nahira, any advice you have for people who are considering the MBA and starting a company?
Yeah, I think like many times we tend to think that we need a perfect idea or the idea in order to start a company. And I would just say, like, don't wait for that to happen. Like, just if you want to be an entrepreneur, just like be super open, talk to people, just like go with the first thing that maybe comes to mind. And that will probably not be the thing that you end up doing, but that's okay because you started something. If you wait until everything is perfect, then you'll probably never start. And I think also, like, for me, the gem that nobody tells you about MBA is what Alan was saying, like talking to people is the best thing you can do, and getting really involved in activities at campus. Like, I really had nothing to do with big data, and I got more involved in that because I started being part of the Big Data Club. And then I went on to plan a datathon, and I got to meet so many people through that. I got connected to a lot of professionals because of that, because I wasn't just focused in classes. I was like reaching out to the community that the school had to give. And I think that's what I would suggest that you do if you go into an MBA. Don't focus just on the classes. Talk to everybody you can. Be part of all the activities you can, and use the resources that are at hand.
Awesome. Yeah, lean into that student card hard whenever it comes to meeting people. That opens up a lot of doors immediately. So definitely good advice there. Great. Well, this has been awesome. Alan, Nahira, and Daniel, thank you so much. Really appreciate you taking the time to be here. Really appreciate the attendees taking the time to be here. There's a Q&A that all of these panelists will be in next. So be sure to go there and ask them any specific questions you have about their businesses, what they're doing, the MBA in general, or the programs that they attended. Again, my name is Nathan Allen for Poets and Quants, and thanks, and everyone have a good day.